In this video I'm going to be speaking about a very peculiar position that many people find themselves in this dimension, and this position, this place, this room, this mansion, it's similar to what the Catholics call purgatory. You see, as far as the Catholics are concerned, when somebody dies, their soul goes into 49 days of purgatory, whereby the soul will just drift around aimlessly for 49 days until it's allocated another dimension or another life force to dwell within. And you can see on YouTube some sort of ghost-like apparition of a human spirit drifting around a very dull dimension. Nothing's happening. It seems so sad, and it's full of lamentations, sorrow, until God reallocates that spirit to another life form, whereby they can start living again and enjoying. Now, what brings this purgatory about, as far as I can gather, is that when people have had a near-death experience, then something takes place. And what it is that takes place is that this human spirit has come so close to death that it's kind of like half of the spirit died and half of it didn't. And half of it goes into the dimension where you go when you pass over from this dimension, and half of it stays in this dimension. I want to make myself plain about this. What I'm saying is that these people whom have had near-death experiences invariably don't find any level of contentment within this life, because they don't feel as if they've got a full heart to put into it. They don't have a full heart to derive anything out of it. And so therefore they're in purgatory and they're just waiting to die, because as far as they can see, well, the other half of the spirit isn't going to be coming anytime soon, particularly if they've had this near-death experience and it's been years ago, and they've been residing within this purgatory. And so what's the alternative? Well, the alternative is for this half of the spirit to go to the spirit world to get this unification and to become one again, and then go on to another life form. And so it seems to me there's some sort of a glitch in how this thing works, because when people have a near-death experience, it seems to me that that person should have died. And it's curious because it doesn't always work in the negative. And so then I lend myself to thinking, well, there's two, at least, possibilities of what can happen. One is that if you have a near-death experience, then you are left with the negative aspect of the spirit, which is dull, and it can't derive any pleasure. It can't be ecstatic, it can't be joyous, it can't bound around with the joys of life. It can't do that. It is dull. It's like, it's a monotone, or it's monochrome. Their life is in black and white. There's no colour to it. But some people, when they have a near-death experience, they make realizations about, I've been wasting my life and I've done all these wrong things, and now I want to make atonement, and I want to do good, and I want to help people, and I want to be an evangelist, I want to spread the word. You know, there's a beautiful place to go to, but only when you're ready. But this world is amazing, and so we're here to have this experience, so capitalize on it, enjoy it, and live it, and be it. And you see how I get? Because I want everybody to have this level of experience that I have. And when people are dull, they're having a dull experience, I want to bring them out of it. And there's lots of people I'm working with. I want to bring them out of it. I want to raise them. And I want to enable them to be able to see and feel like I do. But I'm not sure whether it's possible, at least with lots of people. And so these people who have the negative aspect of the spirit, because if we assume that everything is electromagnetism, everything in the universe has a positive and a negative, or it has a polarity. Not necessarily a positive or negative, but there's a polarity, you know, to every single thing, getting right down to atoms. And so if we assume that the spirit has that also, and I think it must pertain to something like that, because if it doesn't have both polarities, then it can't be a whole, because you need the polarity to be able to extend to the depth of one pole and then come back and extend to the depth of the other pole. And so therefore we have choice, don't we? If we don't have both polarities, we don't have choice, we're limited. You're in eternal bliss, or you're in eternal hell, whatever it is. But if you have the choice or the option of both, then you can choose between the two. And you can experience between the two. But some of these people who have near-death experiences, they don't have the option of the higher level. They've just got the option of the lower. And they dwell in a lower realm upon this planet, in this dimension. And so when we look at the misfortune of people who have experienced near-death experiences, what can we conclude about it? Because it doesn't matter what you speak about in a certain region, they're not reachable. They've got one trajectory, and that trajectory is to get back from whence they came, which they consider to be home. And so if a person has experienced momentarily passing over or fleeting glimpses of what it is like on the other side, and if that has been a very, very positive experience, then it can be that this world pales in comparison. And so that's why they can't feel this joy, because this joy that you can derive from this world is minuscule in comparison to that which you enjoy when you are spirit, residing entirely in God consciousness. Because what happens is, in this dimension, the spirit is compromised in so many ways. It's compromised via everything which pertains to being a human. You know, we get ill, we grow old, we grow infirm, our minds get viruses. We have all these external compromises that push and pull us in every direction. And if you don't have the energy to engage with this dimension, then you sink to the lowest rung on the ladder. And all of the other beings around potentially are living in a higher level of existence. In a matrixial way, in a monetary way, in a psychological way. You know, if you're reasonably adept at engaging with the matrix, then you can gather up all of the chattels it has to offer, which it gives you for engaging with it, you see. But if you don't engage with it, then you don't get any of the chattels and emancipation from the society, because you can buy yourself out of it. Like I've bought myself out of it. For these past 12 years, I bought myself out. And so, if you can't do that, then you're dwelling within it. And if you don't have the energy to create and to put into the matrix so you can get out, then the only thing that you're going to get from the matrix is the shitty end of the stick. You're going to be looked down upon. You're going to be considered to be no value. You're going to be pressurized. Because all of the rest of the hierarchical system is going to want to use you. And so the dilemmas are many. And so I try to look at what has become of some people. And when the going gets a little bit tough, then they lend themselves to suicidal thoughts on lots of occasions. Because it's kind of like, fuck it, fuck this shit. Because I know what it's like on the other side, and I'm not scared. And like, it seemed great to me. I was at peace. And so, the trials and tribulations of the human experience. So I think I've covered all the points I wanted to cover, but just to summarise what I'm saying here now, is that when some people have had near-death experiences and they don't come back with the positive pole of spirit, which opens their eyes to all the things that they never saw before. Their eyes were closed. They were so immersed in the matrix they never knew what was going on. But when they've had this positive experience, they come back and they go, I'm going to enjoy it. I see now. I see. But those that come back with the negative aspect of the spirit, they don't want to do that. They have poor communication skills. They don't want to engage. They're not social creatures. They're insular. And they can't conjure up the energy to create within this dimension because they consider it to be pointless. And so therefore they never amount to anything. And they just meander through until ultimately it's time for them to go back. There's all sorts of spirits dwelling in this dimension. A whole multitude of varying spirits. A whole multitude of mansions within the kingdom of God. I know I keep mentioning this now, but it's something that I derived out of human psychology, looking at people from a psychological, analytical perspective as I do, asking why things should be so. But you see, if you incorporate the spirit realm as well as the physical realm, you see, Freud only ever considered the physical, whereas Jung, he considered the metaphysical as well, and he had much more of an idea of the true reality of what is going on here. Because you have to take into consideration the metaphysical as well as the physical, because we are living in the paradox where everything goes. And so this is where I am. I'm within the paradox, and so many of you, I will rub you up the wrong way because I'm compromising your programs, because you're not versed in both. If you're going to understand what's going on here, you have to be versed in both. Absolutely, you have to be versed in the metaphysical and the physical, because they're the same thing. They're a contradiction, and this whole thing is a contradiction, a paradox.